everyone, how's it going? Well, a lot of you have been asking for this, and finally we're here. We are going to build ourselves a little web server for the CRUD application that we've built in the last two videos. So, the first thing I want to say about this web server application is that it is going to be built in Node, simply because Node is already integrated into my computer here. And I don't want to go through installing things like maybe .NET or Java or PHP. Plus, I'm not overly familiar with PHP and Java. I am with .NET, however, to get it working on my computer, I had to install a few things, and that means other people have to install a few things, and it's just not worth it. So Node is the easiest option for teaching how to build a web server that interacts with Angular. Now, I'm also going to say in this video is that this is going to be a very cut down version of what a real web server will be. For example, I will not be using anything like Mongo or MySQL or any kind of database. I won't even be persisting the information that's on this screen right now to any kind of permanent storage. It will be just an object in memory that's hosted on a web server. Okay. So basically, when the web server dies, all the information is lost and it'll go back to its original starting position. If you guys want to spend time persisting into a database, go ahead. I'm going to eventually be doing a Node course after this Angular 2.1 is done, in which I will be showing things like how to persist stuff to a database. Now, if you're interested in learning that, well, just subscribe to my channel, and very soon I'll get into that aspect of it. So, let's get started on this. So, we're going to build a web server in Node. But firstly, before we do that, what I want to do is I want to come over to the code. And I've opened the folder from basically the whole application level. Right? And the first thing I want to actually remove is from the package.json. I no longer want this in-memory guy. Okay, we don't want him anymore. So we're going to remove all the references to that guy inside our application. So for now, we go under source. Remember, inside of app, we have a player data TS file, which has all the information that we're going to need for the backend server. I'm not going to delete this file yet because I'm going to use it to copy and paste this information later. But I'm going to come into the module and I am going to remove references to it. So we come in here, we're going to remove player data like so. We're going to remove the in-memory web API module like so. And I'm just trying to think, is there anywhere else where we're referencing this information? I don't think there is. I'm pretty sure player service does not have any reference to it because it's using HTTP. I'm pretty sure the module was the only thing that knew about it, and obviously package.json, which just quickly check to see if it's compiling. It is in fact compiling here. We'll just make one little maybe space change just to be sure. And check the compilation. It seems to be compiling okay. This file, as much as it's not being used, we still do have the Angular in-memory module. That's why it's able to compile. If I was to remove that from the no modules folder, this would no longer compile. And we will be deleting this file in a short period. Okay. So now that we've done that, we know, for example, that we have basically nothing here. If we go and check the errors, we're going to see can't load the server with status 404 not found. If we check the network tab, well, we can't see anything because we hadn't loaded it beforehand. But now if we check players, it's basically trying to get the players from localhost 4200 app/players. Now we haven't implemented a server at that point. It's basically going, it's tried to grab it from basically the server it's hosting so far. And that's not going to be how we do this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build ourselves a little mini Node server. So how are we going to do this? Well, firstly, I'm going to go to my documents file and make sure I'm inside of Angular 2, which I'm not. I'm now in my Angular 2 folder. I'm going to create a new folder here. So make directory. I'm going to call it HTTP CRUD server, like so. And at the moment, you'll see if I cd into it, there's nothing inside it. Okay. So what are we going to need for this server? Well, the first thing we need is we need a few dependencies in order to host a web server in Node. Now, if no one's used Node before, what Node basically works on is some core foundational logic plus a lot of packages. Very similar to the packages that we import here inside of this application. Why? Well, the Angular CLI is a Node application. It happens to be a web server itself. Right? So this is a web server. So it's a Node application. So you look in here, and you've got a package.json, like so, and it has a whole list of dependencies, right? So for our Node application, we're going to need something very similar to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file, and we're going to build ourselves, firstly to start this, a little package .json file that we'll need in order to download the dependencies for the project we're going to build. And we don't need very much. We just need a few dependencies. And basically, we're also going to name this particular application inside of here as well. And we could potentially, share this around if we wanted to other people if they wanted to use our particular application. Now, we're not going to do that here. We're just going to do something basic. But the things that we need to provide for package.json to work is, first we need a name. And we can call this whatever we want, but it has to be all lowercase. So I'm going to call it HTTP CRUD server, just like that. It's probably not unique. If we put it up on NPM, that's fine. We're not going to be doing that. The next thing we need is a version. And the version is whatever you want it to be. I'm just going to go 1.0.0.0. Actually, no, I'll do 2 zeros. And then I'm going to add a description as well, just to be special. And we'll call this, I don't know, this is a web server for handling CRUD operations for Angular 2. I guess that's what it is. But this next bit is the important bit. So we're going to have a set of dependencies. Alright, and this is an object. No, it's not an object, it's a JSON. It looks like an object. Alright, basically, when npm loads it, it'll be an object. But basically, we're going to find some dependencies in here. And the first one we're going to have is Express. Now, Express is basically a very simple web server, which is perfect for this example. That allows us to build an API. It's basically, it allows you to hook into HTTP and get information out of HTTP based on requests. And it allows you to host a web server, essentially, at a very light level. So we need that. The version we're going to use is 4.14.1. That happens to be the latest version. Now, just to let you guys know, if you really want the latest version of something and you're not sure what it is, you go npm, I think it's show, and then you go, it's npm show the package name, and then you go dash version, I think that's the command, and there you go. So npm show expresses the dependency we want, the version, and you can see it's 4.1.2. No, that's not right. No, that's not correct. Maybe it's dash version. No. Interesting. I'll have to look this up. Just give me a second. Hey guys, sorry I'm back. Very simple actually, a simple change here. So you just go npm show the name of the package, which is Express, and it's just version without the dash. That's the bit that I got wrong. And then it shows here 4.14.1. So we know that we've got the latest version, right? That's not the right package file. So we know we got the latest of that. Now the other ones that we need are cores, and cores I'll explain a little bit more when we actually get into it. But it's basically a security thing, sort of a security thing, and the other one is something called body-parser, right? Now the version of cores, let's go back over and we'll do the same thing for cores. Now I already know what these numbers are, just want to show you. So it's 281, so 2.8.1, and body-parser, body-parser, 1.16.0. Right, now we're going to save this, and we're going to go out of our CRUD folder. We're going to go update equal to. I'm going to go into the server, and I'm just going to call this package.json. Okay, so very similar to what the Angular CLI uses, but this is for our own little web server that we're building. So name of your application, the version of your application, a small little description about it, and then any dependencies that the application requires, which happens to be Express, Cores, and body-parser. So if anyone installs this package, they'll get Express, Cores, and body-parser with it, and these will be the versions that it will support. Okay, so now this is how we can do npm. So I'll just make sure I'm inside that folder. So now I'll go npm install, and that will read the package.json file, and that's going to pull down those three, and those three plus any dependencies that those three have. So body-parser happens to have the dependency for bytes, content type, debug, ms, all these different ones, right? And then down here, cores has a dependency on something called vary, and express has dependencies on accepts, negotiate, or accepts has dependency on negotiator, and so on and so forth. And basically there's a whole dependency graph here. Now you can look at that when you do this yourself. And there's a couple of errors here talking about just some warnings if I don't have a license and all that, but we're not publishing this, so we don't care. Okay. So that's the package.json we need for the application. Now what we need is we need to actually build the server. Okay. So again, we're going to create a new file, and we'll save it straight away. Actually, save as. And I'm going to come into my Angular 2 HTTP CRUD server, and I'm just going to call it server.js, right? Pretty standard name that people have for their servers. So, what do we need to do with the server? Well, essentially it's going to be an API, right? So we need to support a get for a collection. We need to support an update for a particular player, an insert for a new player, and delete for an existing player. Okay, so they're the four actions we need to do. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot more involved to get this working than just supporting those four things. There's something called cores, which I'll get to in a sec. Basically, that's going to be supported on this server, and a few other bits and pieces. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much on cores just because it's a security based topic, and it's not really designed for an Angular 2 person. It's more something you worry about from a server end than you worry about from a client side. But it affects the client side, and especially it will affect it in this example. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to start uploading, or we need to pull in those packages that we downloaded, right? Because we're going to need them in this application. Now, how you do that in Node is you come in and you go var, the name of a package, or the package, this is basically a variable, just a JavaScript variable, but you go require and you pass in that package, okay? So that's how you require the package. And we need a few more, so we'll go cores equals require cores, and lucky last, body-parser equals require body-parser. Okay, they're all the packages that are in the package.json. Nothing special there. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create ourselves a little application, and that's pretty easy to do. We just call express like that. Okay, this basically gives us a little app, which we will use to build up basically endpoints for our API, or for people to call on our API. And at the end, we'll create a little server that listens on a particular port. So the next step after we've created our app is we're going to specify that we want to use the body parser in our app. So how do we do this? Well, we go app.use, okay? And we're saying as part of the app, I want to use this body parser, okay? But I want to use the JSON part. Now, what this does, body-parser.json, is it means that whenever we handle a request from the server, we're going to automatically parse the body if it's JSON format, okay, to an object. So that's what this line here will do for us, okay? I'm not going to go too much more into it than that. The next thing we need to do, and this is a little bit of security stuff, so we go app dot. Now, there's in HTTP, you all would have seen these options from time to time if you looked in the network tab, right? Now, this has got a lot to do with this particular topic here, this HTTP access control and cause, and I could spend a fair bit of time on this, but basically the concept is that in the old days, what servers used to do is prevent other pages from other web servers, or generate from other web servers calling their servers. What's a good example of this? Just say, for example, you fetch the page from google.com, and then Google behind the scenes wants to call Microsoft.com. Well, you couldn't do that in the old days, okay? Well, I don't think you could. Basically, Microsoft would say, hey, you're not from us, you're from Google, we don't trust you, so it would block it. But these days, because we have things like APIs and they all have different host names and things like that, we need to be able to get access to these APIs and not be blocked anymore. And that's more to do with architectural design, all this kind of stuff, to just separate your web server from your API server and all these other bits and pieces, right? So this cause bit was implemented as part of the HTTP standard. And basically, if you read through this article, it talks about a whole bunch of stuff to do with that. But the thing that we're trying to handle right now is this thing called a cause pre-flight. And basically, if you read a little further down, you got a pre-flighted request. And essentially, if you try to call a put operation or a delete operation or post some post operations, what happens is there's an options request that gets made first to work out, am I going to support these particular methods on this particular origin, and then the server will say yes or no, and that's where this cause thing kicks in. Now, fortunately for this example, you're not going to have to worry too much about setting all this up, because we're going to keep it very simple by using this cause library that I've included as part of the application. So when we go app.options here, what we're saying is we want to support cause when somebody sends a HTTP options request to us, and we want to support it on the next couple of URLs that I'm about to put in here. So API/players, okay. So on the options of that, we're gonna add the cause framework to that, okay. So this cause execution method here basically adds a few response headers to support this cross-origin thing. I really try not to explain it too much because I know not everybody's a developer, but basically it's to support this cross-origin issue that I was just talking about using HTTP headers, response headers. So that's essentially what this is doing here. Now we need to support it for the API/players and also API/players/ and something called ID, right? And we'll get to what this ID is in a little bit. Okay, so we need it for both of those. And that's just the start. Now, the first API method I want to start working with so that we can actually see something come up on here, because at the moment we can see that we're dead and in fact doesn't work, okay, is I want to support the get operation on this server, okay? So to do that, we go app.get, all right? And what we're going to be getting from, well, we're going to be getting from API/players, right? We're going to be supporting cores on this endpoint as well. And basically we'll be doing it on all endpoints because we need to. And then what we do is we have a function. So what this is here, we got a URL of what, you know, it will keep an eye out on. So this is kind of like it's listening for anyone that requests this URL. And then after this, we've got this cause function that's called, and a function of our own. Now, what is this at the moment? Well, this is basically a set of functions that handle the cause operations, plus we have one to handle the actual request itself, okay? So inside of the function here, we can actually get access to a request and a response, okay? So what we're going to do from here, just to keep it simple, is we go response.end, right? And we're going to go json.stringify, and we're going to pass in something called players, right? And we haven't specified what the players are yet, which I'm going to do up here in memory. So we're going to var players equals some array, and going back to the application over here, our original service, not service, player data, we're going to grab this, in fact, that, right, we're going to come back to our server, and I think we can just do that, and I've made a little bit of a mess here, and that's essentially the data that we're going to use for this application, right? And that's all there is. So what does this res.end do? Well, essentially it says end the response, returning this information in the body. Okay, really simple, nothing difficult there. Now to finally get this running, because at the moment we haven't actually hosted or written the code to actually listen to anything. We're just saying at this point, if we get something that comes in with this URL, we'll send this. Okay, on a GET request. Now we need to actually listen on a particular port, okay? So that's just the last step here. So what we need to do is define a server. Well, technically we don't need to. You can go app.listen, and I'm going to listen, I'm going to listen on port 8081. You can choose whatever port you want. I'm going to function, right? And then I'm just going to write a little bit of code here, just more for detail when we actually run the application. So we've got server.address. This basically gets the address of the server this is running on. At the moment, it's my local machine. So that will probably return not much. And then port equals server.address.port. Right. So if the host has something in it, or sorry, if the host is something, which it should be, hopefully, or sorry, if it's not something, or the host is equal or triple equal to, and you'll get this maybe on your local machine, this double colon, at least that's what I got. I'll just set the host to localhost with a colon on the end. Alright, so this just This is all detailed stuff. You don't really need to add this, but it's just to give you an idea that the server is running. Now go console.log, and we go crud server listening at HTTP // Now we go %s, like so. And then basically what that is, %s is we're going to replace this bit here with some string, and then the one after is the next. So it'll be another string. This is argument 1, this is argument 2. Okay? So argument 1 will be the host, and argument 2 will be the port. Okay, nothing major there. And we will save for now. There obviously is going to be more code to write here. But to get started, this should be enough to see at least the players, hopefully. If I did it right. So now I'll come up to this top one. And I'm going to go ls just to make sure I'm there. Now to get a node, an application running in Node, by default you just go node server, or server.js. I think you can just do server. No. .js. Oh wait, sorry, my bad. Remember I said I didn't need that server? I do. Because I'm using it in here. And we'll run that again. CRUD server listening. So now if I go to, and I'll close this. And if I now go to HTTP, and we go localhost at 8081. Now by default it says cannot get /. That's because remember here we're not supporting /. We've only got /API/players, and that's on the get, and 2 on the options. Now we can't really do options from the browser, so now I'll go /API/players, and we run, and as we can see we're spitting out those 3 players that we included. Okay, so that's a good start. So by rights, does this work? Refresh. No, it does not. Why doesn't it? Well, we're still pointing to localhost 4200/app/players. So we just need to make a minor change to our service, don't we? And first, what we're going to do is I'm going to actually kill this now, because I don't want this anymore. So I'll delete that. Move to trash. So come into the player service, and in the players URL, rather than just having app/players now, and this I would not recommend in production, but for a teaching point of view, we'll just do this for the moment. Localhost 8081. Normally you would pass this through as some kind of environment variable, but I'm too lazy to do that right now, so I'm going to just do this. If I now save that and I let the application recompile, hopefully, and once again still not working, but we are now pointing to the right place. So what did we do wrong? It's saying localhost 8081/app/players not found. No access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. Origin localhost 4200 is therefore not allowed access. But it's saying 404. So it did go there. So what I think has happened, strange. I'm interested. If I remove this, is it going to work? No. It's still saying. So this access control allow origin issue, this is the cause thing that I was talking about. Now for some reason, it's not handling the cause. I'm not sure why it's not doing that. Because in the get, we definitely have it there. So a slash API slash players. Do I need a slash at the end? I think no. Don't listen. body-parser.json. Strange, very strange. This I had working earlier. I'm going to pause this for a sec. I'm not sure what's happened here. I'll work out what it is and I'll get back to you. Okay guys, I'm back. Found the source of the problem. The error was a little misleading. It had nothing to do with cause at all. What actually happened was over here, when I wrote localhost, I had app/players. So I was generating a 404, and then it was giving me a cause error, which I'm assuming that cause error occurred because of the fact that we're not handling 404s in our node logic. So because we're not handling a 404 in the server, and this is probably for something, when you're building a proper server out, on 404 we weren't handling cause, so as a result it was having a complaint. But when I set it up for API/players, we now get the players on the list. So if we check the network tab and we come down here, you'll see we now are calling the right location and we're getting some JSON, or some objects. Okay, so that's step one. The other thing I had to do, which I didn't really explain to you guys, I kind of just did it, was on this .json, it had a .data. Now, the .data was useful for the in-memory API, but for our server, we do not need this .data, so we're going to remove that from both the insert and the get players, and I don't think it's on anything else, which it's not. And that's, I think, the only changes we need to make to this service so far. So moving on, we'll now move on to the add button, or the actual add. We'll support the post next. So let's go back to our node code. And underneath the app.get, we're going to go app.post. And once again, we've got /API/players. And we're going to cause, like so, function. It's the same deal, right? But in this circumstance, we have the player coming in from JSON, right? And it's in the body of the request. Now, remember when I set up here, we had this body parser. This body parser takes care of taking the JSON from the request and converting it into an object, which we can access now via request.body, like that, okay? And that is literally 100% our object that we've posted, okay? So, the easy part is, and the first thing we have to do, is we need to give this new posted player an ID, because if you look up here, we've got 1, 2, 3, and then next one should be 4, next one should be 5, 6. Now, if you're getting this from a database, you would probably get the ID back yourself, and then it would be auto-populated. But because we're not using a database here, I'm just going to quickly put a variable here, and I'll just set it to 4, for example, to start off with. Okay. Now, you wouldn't do this in a real life example, but for this one, we are going to do that. And then we're going to set the new object, which had no ID passed in because we never had one. We're going to set it to the new ID, okay? Which happens to be 4 in this case. And then we'll go new ID ++. So we're making sure we increment it every time we do a post. And once again, I'm not taking into consideration things like multiple requests coming at the same time and consistency issues and all that kind of stuff. Once again, this is just a very lightweight node server. I'm not going deep into detail in server logic because that's not the objective of this course. It's just to support an Angular 2 project. Okay. So next, what I'm going to do, now that we've set the ID, we're going to basically add this new player to the players array. So let's do that, players.push. And this is simple JavaScript stuff. So I've pushed the new player, which happens to be request.body in this case. Next, we're going to return back the player that we just updated the ID on. And we need to do that as a JSON response, which is in a string format. Now, currently this request.body is not a string, it's just an object, so we need to set that back to a string. So response JSON equals JSON.stringify request.body. Okay. And then finally, as we did in the previous one, we go response.end and we pass in the response JSON. Okay. And save. And hopefully, when we run the server again, we can start adding players to this API. So I'm going to stop the server and I'll rerun the server. And if I come in here now, and we don't need to refresh the client here, so we'll come in and I'll put myself. I'm a coder, like so. Submit. We can see it's added directly to this list. Right? If I refresh the page, I'm still there. Why am I still there? Because now I'm on the server. Okay. Now, if you want to see that I'm on the server when I've added, well, what we can do is we can log out console.log players. Just players, there you go. Save that. And if I come in here, restart the server, and this time watch the console over on the right when I add in another person, James Harden, ball hog, submit, and now you can see the whole list. So LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, James Harden. Not sure where I went in this list. I should have been added. Oh, that's right. I restarted the server, didn't I? So I'm still over here, but it's because I restarted the server while this application was still running. So as a result, I'm gone again. If I add me, night. It's now officially 11 p.m. We're past 11 p.m. And now you can see that I've been pushed in here. And you can see automatically the ID has been updated as well. And it's also updated up here. If I refresh, it's all good. Okay. So the next thing is, I don't like James Harden. He's a ball hog. I want to delete him. So let's handle the delete function. Okay. So we'll come back over to our server. I'm going to remove, oh no, yeah, actually no, we'll remove that. And then under here, we're going to go app.delete, and we're going to delete using the a special character here, players, and then colon ID. What this is basically when it reads the bit after API/players, it's going to convert what's here into a string, and then it's going to populate it on the a params object of the request, and it's going to call it ID. Okay, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So function request response. So now if I go, we're going to go let player ID equal request.params .id like that. So as I said, this now will have that. Now this is a string. This is not an integer that comes off here. So obviously up here we've got IDs. So just be very careful with your JavaScript logic. Remembering that if you're going to use triple equals, this a number and a string will not equal. If you use double equals, then they could potentially be equal based on the content of the string. Okay, simple JavaScript stuff there. So the next step is I want to find the player index. Oops, let player index. So I'm trying to find where that player is. Equals players dot find index player, and we're going to go where player dot id double equals player ID. Very important distinction there, not triple equals. And then we'll check to see if the player index, so basically if it doesn't find anything inside the collection, it'll be less than 0. So all we have to do is check if it's greater than or equal to 0, then we know we've found someone. And then once we find that person, we just go players.splice, and this is simple JavaScript stuff, player index, and we're just going to be removing one item. At the end of this, we'll just end the response. End. Like so, we're not passing anything back, so we just go to response.end. Now this should be enough for delete to work. So let's go back over to our code. We'll close the server down. We'll restart the server. We will refresh the page. So Harden's not there anymore. But I'm going to quickly add him in and be cruel and take him straight back out. Ball hog, yep. That's exactly what he is. Alright, even Westbrook. Alright, so he's in the list, so if I refresh the page, he's still there, but I don't like him, so I'm going to click delete. And what happened? Well, he's deleted, I believe, from the server, but he wasn't removed from the list. Now, why is that? Let's have a look over here. Server code is fine. Delete player. Okay. So is it something wrong with the component? Remove player from list player. Strange. By rights, the delete was a 200 okay. So it did succeed. But for whatever reason, so if I refresh the page, he's gone. It's not deleting from the. Why is it not doing this now? Strange. Alright guys, I'm going to pause this again, find out what happened here. And I'm back. Okay, I found out the source of the problem. My fault. In the server, I forgot to include cause. Remember, I had to include this. If you don't include that, basically the action is denied from you getting response. The request will be handled, like it deleted the player from the server, but it wouldn't return back a proper HTTP status code. It said basically, no, error, you're denied, even though it allowed me to do something, which is because of the options. So I allowed the option through, so I allowed to execute the delete, but when the delete was executed, it said, cross-origin issue. So it's just one of those real tedious things. The cause is a very tricky subject. This is why I didn't want to focus on building Node in this particular course. But basically, I forgot to include this course bit. That's the bit that I was missing. But it works now. So if I come over here and I refresh the page just to make sure that I've got the two. If I delete LeBron, he disappears. If I refresh the page, now you've still just got Kyrie Irving. If I delete him and I refresh the page, well, we've got no one. If I add, I don't know, me, Rouse, and refresh, I'm there. If I delete myself, I'm not there. Okay. So cool. That is now 3 of the 4 actions. The last one is update. Hopefully update might be a little bit trickier. And what update is, it's a put action. So under insert, I'm going to put app.put. Now put is the REST version for basically doing an update to a resource. Players, and once again, we're going to pass the ID. I'm going to remember to passing calls this time. Function, request, response. Like so. And then for this one, we're going to do the same thing. Let player ID equal request.params.id and var player equals players.find. So this time we're actually going to get the player object because we're going to modify it. And we're going to go with the player ID double equals player ID. So same as before. Don't make the mistake of comparing an integer to a string by using triple equals. I did that when I was setting up this particular example. The first time I did it, I kept forgetting the triple equals killer. So if it finds a player, and we're going to update the first name is equal to request.body.firstname player.lastname equals request.body.lastname player.description equals request.body.description. Cool. And we're not going to be returning anything to the server, to the client, so we'll just end it right there. Sometimes people return the object that they updated back to the client. I don't see a need for that on a put. I do see a need for that on an insert because the insert can contain extra information, but there might be a situation where you need it for an update. But for me, I don't need that. Now that should be enough for the code. So now I'll go and I'll restart the server again. Oops. Run it one more time. Alright, okay, refresh, because we've started a new server, it should all be there. Now if I go to LeBron and I call him, I don't know, Mike, Mike James, go submit. Doesn't look like anything changed, because we're using model binding, but in fact things have changed. So if I go 6, you can see it's reflected instantly up there. If I refresh, you'll see it still says Mike 6. If I come in and I edit it back, run. And if you want to confirm that on the server, well, you can do what I did before. Just log out basically the players. So if I go console.log players like so, just to show you that things change. Stop the server, rerun it, and refresh. And watch over here. So we go edit LeBron James, and we'll set him back to Mike, and submit. And you'll see that it opened up here, first name Mike, and so it's automatically reflected there. If I refresh the page, then clearly we know it's going to say Mike. And that's going to be it for this video. So we have successfully built a Node server. I'm just going to take this out. We now have a Node server that we can use to test our Angular 2 credit application on. Now in the next video, we're going to start looking at RxJS and observables and what they can do for us over just standard promises, because promises are good for basically if you got one thing that requires you to watch a particular action, whereas observables are a little bit more clever, that you can actually subscribe to them and multiple things can subscribe to them. Anyway, I'll mention more when I get to it. There's a lot more than that that's involved. But from a code point of view, I think that will wrap it up for this video. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.